Friends, join us! We have a spectacle!
Thank you for your love and support.
I give you the War Wolf!
What's up, guys? Spenny. I hate doing reads like this because I have to go back and actually watch old Joe Biden clips and listen to what his team was saying, and the gaslighting just hurts my head. The gaslighting actually makes me go insane. Here's a real video of Joe Biden just wandering off, and Giorgia Meloni had to go and grab him, and all the other world leaders had to kind of coalesce around him to stop him from just wandering away. It's a real thing that happened. It's not fake. But the White House told us it was fake.
That was definitely a cheap fake. It was. This was widely fact-checked. That video was widely fact-checked, including by conservatives media, on what happened, what occurred. The president walked over to give a thumbs up to divers who had just landed right in front of him. And if you run that tape a little bit longer, you would see what was happening, what the president was actually doing, and it is a cheap fake.
So she's such a liar, and she gets asked about more and more videos of Joe Biden doing this because there are so many videos of Joe Biden just not being able to walk by himself or know where he's going. Here's a good one: Jimmy Kimmel on stage, of all people, Joe Biden and Barack Obama, and Barack Obama has to physically pull Joe Biden off stage because Joe Biden clearly has just absolutely no clue what's going on. And Joe Biden can barely walk, and Obama has to manhandle him off the stage. I mean, so is this a cheap fake too? Cringe Jean-Pierre is a liar. And she's a liar with a brand new haircut. I'll give her that. Our culture is not your costume. I don't know what happened to the Raggedy Ann haircut from the White House days. It is quite remarkably different here. If you'll notice, there's So I guess someone can explain this to her. Is this cultural appropriation? Of white girls? I don't know. I'm not sure. Is it this is clearly not Cringe Jean-Pierre's original hair color. And this is definitely not Cringe Jean-Pierre's original hair. But I digress. Maybe it has nothing to do with me. I don't know. I'm just saying that a white girl, there's no shortage of white girls in dreadlocks getting attacked, for appropriating culture. Anyway, whatever. She could be wearing a sombrero for all I care. I'm just flipping it around. I could care less. Here she is lying again. And what I'm trying to figure out here is she left the Democrat Party, but she still feels the compunction to lie on behalf of Joe Biden. Here she is saying that the White House did a great job and that Joe Biden did a great job and that he's really smart. And he talked to the press
we did have legislative wins.
Sure,
and
but he didn't talk about him that well, though. He couldn't talk about them. He wasn't campaigning.
No. Wait. First of all, he did talk about them. Whether it broke through or not, he did. Tim, he did talk about.
He talked way less to the press than Donald Trump does. Way less. And he wasn't out there at all. He wasn't good off the cuff. He wasn't doing press conferences. Let's just be real. He didn't do night events.
Tim, that's not true. Tim, you're conflating all of it. That's what you're doing. No, you're telling me he didn't talk well about it. Then you're telling me he didn't talk at all.
He didn't do either. He didn't talk very often, and when he did, it wasn't very good. He sounded very old.
Maybe you weren't paying attention to what we were doing at the White House. But
I paid attention. I'm with you on the policies. I'm talking about his performance.
The president spoke to the American people a couple times a week. He traveled and did domestic travel.
He traveled. He spoke to the American people a couple times a week. You can always tell, look at the eye line. You can always tell liars because they won't look you in the eye. That's why I try my very hardest to look straight down the barrel here. They won't look you in the eye. Their eyes are always darting all over the place, looking up, looking around. You can tell it's that your pulse. It's a sign of a liar. Look at this. What an unrepentant liar Cringe Jean-Pierre is. And she's out continuing her lies. Now, she's trying to sell a book, right? Like anybody cares. But she says she never saw signs of Joe Biden slipping. Never. She never saw any signs of Joe Biden slipping. I mean, first off, Joe Biden did literally slip in front of her, right? But also, Joe Biden is one of those guys who, like, couldn't get down off the plane. He's one of those guys that, like, literally couldn't walk down the plane. This is when Cringe Jean-Pierre was working for Joe Biden. He could barely do the stairs. He almost slips. Here, look at the agent, how close the agent is behind him. Do you realize how not normal this is to have a Secret Service agent walking right behind the president to stop him from falling? Then Joe Biden had to be helped into his vehicle by the Secret Service. He had to be picked up and carried into his vehicle by the Secret Service. Nobody talks about this. Cringe Jean-Pierre says it's all
decline.
Didn't see anything.
And after that,
Pain people were on the team. His family was on the team. I actually was one of those rare trips that I didn't really see him until after the debate, even though I was on the plane. So really, I want everybody to know that I take this question incredibly seriously. I do. I was his White House press secretary, which means I had a role that saw him practically every day and traveled with him.
And you saw nothing.
For more than 95%. We've always said, we're not going to say, oh, he didn't age. He aged. And he poked fun at it. We always owned up. And with age comes what happens when you get older.
Which is?
But when we talk about the mental acuity, and again, I take this very, very seriously. I
You've
never
already said
saw
that. You
anyone
said you take
who
it seriously.
wasn't there. I
Also
saw someone who was
liars.
always engaged. I saw someone who understood policy, pushed us on the policy, and also understood history. And there were times, I'll tell you the story, there were times where he would call me into the Oval Office, and I would be like, oh no, because I knew whatever he was going to ask me was going to be direct, was going to be about a story he read, about how we're pushing back, how we're pushing a message forward.
Okay. All right. Got it. Okay. How much can we take here? How much are people going to take? How much are people going to tolerate? Are you just going to let it, like, there's no value in letting her continue lying? You know, if Stephen Colbert is there to, like, call you on your BS, you have done a really, really bad job. And that is what Cringe Jean-Pierre is now seeing. Stephen Colbert, of all people, coming after her and saying, whoa, hold on a minute. You're not telling the truth here. Colbert checks KJP with brutal reality check on betrayal. Saturday, Colbert goes after his own side. By the end, he grew so tired of KJP's spin, he started talking down to her like a child. Oh boy. Here we go.
The party was because they're not fighting enough today, but also you believe that the Democratic Party betrayed Joe Biden.
I do.
In what way?
The way in that 3 weeks where the debate happened and he decided to step down and pass the baton over to Vice President Kamala Harris, who I think did a phenomenal job running her campaign, and she should get credit for that. Now, you got to remember, this is very personal to me because I was at the podium almost every day talking about this. And I had never seen this visceral reaction and the attack on this man who, you know, by objectively had a good 3 years when you think about the economy, right? When you think about how he responded to COVID, the student loan, I mean, you name it, expanding healthcare.
Well, just jump in here.
Yeah,
it was very personal to those of us who watched it, too, because it was a shock to our system to see that. Because, I mean, you're talking to a guy who helped raise $25 million for Joe Biden in March of that same year. And 3 months later...
Thank you for that. Thank you for stepping in and doing that.
I saw a guy who I had not seen backstage at the benefit that I did. It seemed like a dramatically different person. And at 81 years old, that's not entirely unexpected. You can imagine why people got so worried.
So, a couple of things. I got to see Joe Biden almost every day. And this is a question that I take very seriously. No one has ever said he hasn't aged. No one ever said that. He would make jokes about it. He would acknowledge it, and he would say, yes, I know I don't speak this as well as I used to. I don't walk as well as I used to. No one is saying that he didn't age. I'm talking about, did he have the question that I was getting, the mental acuity? Was he able to govern? And the man that I saw nearly every day was someone who was engaging, understood policy, and was always putting the American people first. And it showed in what we were able to get done. I remember I saw him
I don't think
nearly
anybody
every
questioned
day.
his heart
Yeah.
or his policies,
not even-
but it takes more than that to be the president of the United States. In a moment of great pressure on stage, we saw someone shock us and worry us, and nothing could assuage that worry. So I don't think it was necessarily a betrayal of Joe Biden, as other people saying, we don't think we were shown the Joe Biden that you saw.
I saw every day a really ugly assault on someone who had 50 plus years of experience and who, again, objectively had done a good job as president of the United States. And it was heartbreaking to see that type of behavior.
I think all of that, everything you're saying, I cannot fault the factual basis of what you're saying or your feelings about it. But what happened was the debate performance. Everything is downstream of that.
And no one is saying that the debate performance wasn't shocking, wasn't a disappointment. No one is saying
Disappointment
that.
is such a light term.
I use your words.
It was harrowing.
I use your words.
Okay, look, listen, we're never going to agree on this.
We're not.
Other than
We're
the
not,
fact
but-
that I'm glad that you came here tonight and
And I
telling me to
appreciate
wrap
that.
over there. Would you
I
like to say one more
appreciate
thing
that,
before we
But I
go?
do think that this is a moment, really, truly, what this book is about for me is the moment that we're in, and we have to continue to fight for our democracy, and we have to do that every day. One thing that the president used to say is we are a very, this is an experiment. Our democracy, this is an experiment that we're in, and if we do not fight for it every day, we will lose it. And that is my concern.
She can't even make eye contact. It's so bad. It's so bad that Stephen Colbert couldn't even put up with it. When Fox News is writing positive Stephen Colbert article headlines, Stephen Colbert and KJP clash over Biden's mental acuity, actions, president was betrayed. You're talking to a guy who helped raise $25 million for Joe Biden. Yeah, well, maybe that shouldn't be like the thing that you do if you want to be a late night comedian. Wait a second, he lost his show, so he's no longer a late night comedian. Stephen Colbert actually destroyed the Late Show, and KJP is destroying whatever she has. So, you know what? Let him enjoy the ashes, is what I say. It's your boy Benny. Like, share, and subscribe. See ya.